everyone, and welcome to Lexi's Nook. I am Lexi. I am your host. We will be talking all things books, book club recommendations, Reese Witherspoon books, and books on my TBR list. I am joining you either on Spotify for free and you're listening, or if you're able to see my face, then you have subscribed to the Patreon and BookTube account. My Spotify podcast is Lexi's Book Nook, and it's everything we're discussing here. Patreon is $3 a month to support the podcast, see my face, see my book nook, get inspiration for your own, and see the book covers. My YouTube page, you can also have all those benefits as well. So you have plenty of options if you want to support the podcast. $3 a month, and it's very cheap for all those great benefits. But if you are a listener of the podcast, then you know that this is a different episode. I usually post a beginning of the month and the end of the month. Beginning, I talk about the books that I'll be reading from 2 book clubs I'm a part of, Reese Witherspoon books, and then books on my TBR list that is in theme with the theme to the best of my ability. And then the end of the month, I briefly go over those books. I go through a summary, my thoughts, review, and then some discussion questions. I try to keep it short. I don't want to go too long, so maybe 3, no more than 5 questions per book. It might change depending on the book. But as you can tell, this is not quite beginning of the month, so this is a bonus episode. I really love fantasy books, and I've just recently got onto A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, and I just finished the 3rd book of the series. So if you have a Patreon account or YouTube and you're watching now, you now have access to see the cover. So here it is. I listened to it as an audiobook, so this is why it's on my phone. It's probably not the best picture, but here you go. It's purple, very nicely covered. I really like it. I think it's pretty. I think it's perfect for my February background. If you check out my Instagram, Lexi's Book Nook, and I try to do a little collage so it goes perfectly. So let's get into the book and a summary. Warning, if you have not read the books, I will be spoiling a lot of things in here. A lot happen, and you kind of need to read the first 2 to read the 3rd. So for the summary, war is looming upon everyone as there's a lot of running around to gain allies. Feyre's sisters now are Fey and have powers. Allies are made as the group goes to fight the King of Hybern. Amber betrays the group but is forgiven. By the end, the horrendous king is murdered by Elaine. Rhysand is then killed and resurrected. Then the group hides the cauldron on an island and hopes that no one tries to use it against them again. Feyre strikes up a new treaty between the Fae and the humans and returns to Velaris with the newly resurrected Rhysand. Sorry if you heard me pause a lot. I listened to it so that the spelling kind of throws me off. And my throat is just not where it is for some reason. But going into this, I really like the second book the most. I don't know why. I think it's just my love for Rhysand. He's grown on me a lot. In the first one, I could really portray the book as a movie, especially the last bit. When Feyre was captured by Amaranthe. Yeah, that's how I say it. Fantasy books, I always get the names mispronounced, so I apologize if I butcher these. But I think the second one is my favorite, and for this one, I felt like it was the driest of the 3 because of the war coming up. It got really political, and it talked about the war a lot, and these allies and all these talks. I didn't get really into it until all the drama happened. So let's get into it. So I just kind of talked about. I also thought there was a bit of some fluff, just a lot of things to keep the story going, but not enough to keep going. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? But that's just me. I know there are a lot of fans out there. I don't want to bash you or the books. I do like the books. I just found this book to be a little drier, but I still enjoyed the big moments, of course, the drama and the romance and the action. Of course, I just mentioned I love Rhysand. And I felt like the characters continued to develop more and more each book. So I really like that. And I think Feyre's a badass. I don't know if she's entirely likable, but I'm starting to like her a little bit more in this book, especially when she talks to her friend more. But we're going to get into that in my 3rd question. So my first one is, what are my thoughts on Amren's incredible sacrifice? So I thought this was interesting, and being a little bit, I mean, I am religious, but Amran is kind of described as a fallen angel, in which the two twin cities that were she destroyed resemble Sodom and Gomorrah. She also referred to father with a capital F. Like, I found that note. Of course, I listened to it, so I didn't really get the capital F father. You can imply it, but when I saw the note when I was doing my research for this episode, I noticed that in particular that she refers to father as like God, my father. She also specifically says that she had to fall to be freed from the prison, like fall. So all these little hints kind of imply that she is like the angel of death, which I thought was really cool. That doesn't really go into her sacrifice that much, but I thought that was really cool and all those references. So that's just me being a nerd. The second question is thoughts on Lucian and Elaine, and then Cassian and Nesta. So I thought these are interesting pairings. I think the author, has some interesting like humor and like trying to really balance each character out. Lucian seems so stiff to me in the first book in particular. So he starts to soften up throughout the books, but he just seems like the stern father or something like that. And Elaine is so warm and bubbly and fuzzy. I think they kind of balance each other out. And I thought Lucian was an interesting choice because I know he's had some baggage with his last lover, so I think Elaine is really good for him in that sense. But Nesta and Nesta, I don't know if I like her or not by the end of this book. I think she definitely grew on me, but I still am not a huge fan. And I don't know if my sister will listen to this, but she kind of reminds me of my sister, but like in like the sarcastic, tough love kind of way, and very protective over her younger sibling. I'm the oldest, so I feel like Nesta and Elaine's relationship is like my sister and my youngest sister. So there's some like kind of like get the wrong impression, but she's doing it because she loves them and supportive. So Nesta, I think her pairing with Cassian is a little weird. And I got the impression that Cassian is kind of like the comic relief, kind of like he's more laid back and more soft spoken. So I thought it was very interesting for that pairing. But I think they kind of cancel each other out. That the opposites attract kind of thing, and I think that's what Sarah J. Maas is trying to do. So I thought it was very interesting. And then the third question, I mentioned more. What do you think about More Secret? And okay, so I did mention I'm religious, but I'm not saying that I'm not going to imply anything. I find it for myself personally hard to relate to LGBTQ characters in books. I didn't feel like it was entirely necessary for this story because I know Azriel was interested in more, but I think Sarah could have left it that Moore just wasn't interested, or she had a different story, or she had some baggage or some trauma, or that she and Azriel tried and it didn't work. I did not think that her coming out was necessary for the story, so I don't want people to take that the wrong way, but I didn't think it was necessary for the story. That's just my opinion. I know people really love Moore, and I'm not denouncing her character at all. I think she's still really awesome. I think she's a badass. I think she's a great friend. And for Farah to really listen to her and support her is what a good friend should do. And I really love that. I still love the characters. I still love more, but I did not think her coming out as gay was necessary for the story. That's just my opinion. I am just one book reviewer. You can totally turn this off if you want to, but I thought this was a good discussion question. So if you disagree, you can you feel free to disagree. We can agree to disagree. But I didn't want to start anything. That was just a discussion question I thought would be interesting. Thoughts on Lucian's heritage. And I feel like there's so much power in this story that I couldn't quite grasp. Because his heritage reveals that he is the son of Helion. So there are all these questions, but I don't feel all the hype. Like, I know it's a big deal because these questions are like, does this mean that he becomes the day court heir? Does this get revealed to everyone? And I know Farrah was very close to spilling the beans on the secret, but what would it have meant if she had? Like, I want to see how dramatic this reveal is, rather than just like, oh hey, by the way, I'm the son of Helion. Like cool. I don't know. I think it's a very big reveal, but I wanted more from it, you know. So there are a lot of like questions like that and big reveals and secrets and like reactions to all these things, and I think they were all very interesting. I didn't think they were all quite that necessary, but I thought they kept the story going that helped develop each character and reveal more about the characters and the relationships with each other. So I thought they were maybe necessary for character development, but I feel like I'm kind of like drifting away from the series as each book is revealed after the Court of Thorns and Roses and then Wings and Ruin and Mist and Fury, of course, and then Wings and Ruin. I feel like each installment, I feel myself kind of drifting off a little bit more. I love fantasy and I love like the idea of fairies and the Fae world, but it's gotten really political in my opinion, and I kind of like drift away from those. So the first was my favorite so far, but then second, I loved the most because of Rhysand. So I put that on a pedestal, but I think the first book had the best storyline, if that makes sense. So I still enjoy these series. I want to finish it through because I do think it's a really cool universe. But those are my thoughts on the book. Let me know if you have different thoughts, if you want to keep talking about this, if you want to give me more discussion questions that you want me to answer in a later episode. I have a website called lexisbooknook.com. You can find my contact information. You can find me on Instagram or Bookstagram as lexisbooknook.com or lexisbooknook. Again, my podcast is on Spotify for free, Lexi's Book Nook. If you want to support the podcast, see my face, see my book nook, get inspiration for your own. I'll be getting new pictures pretty soon, and I will reveal that. You want to see the book cover, Patreon is $3 per month, or you can join me on YouTube and see my wonderful, hopefully wonderful face and enjoy my podcast, booktube, blog, all of that thing, all of those things. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you keep on reading.